Hi, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday, Q&A Wednesday, Facebook Live. We've got an interesting topic today, just because, honestly, just because it's competition season. And so we're going to talk about a couple of different types of competition, but of course, I'll talk mostly about the one I know most about and have the most experience with. So I know a lot of people were interested in tuning in, and I really want to talk a little bit about that because I see some interesting phenomenon going on when it comes to getting on stage. So I see some of my peeps hopping on. I'm so excited to see you guys. It's kind of fun. I know you guys follow me week after week, and I appreciate that. So you guys are the reason that I hop on and do these, because I want to make sure that people are educated, that, there's a lot of misconceptions that happen. So I want to, get it out there and how things really are. So first of all, I just want to touch on the topics of just what kind of competition we're talking about, because honestly, I'm not just talking about bodybuilding or physique competitions, even though that's what I'm accustomed to and I participate in and coach in a little bit. But this could be any type of a competition. When it comes to, I like a competition. I have to have a goal. The main reason I started to compete back in 2012, hi Adrian, is that, once for many of you know that I used to be obese, and, made a transformation in my life, honestly, just because I became educated on how the body works and how to be a little more healthful and fit. But I did get to the point where I was kind of going back to old habits and starting to eat things that I know that I shouldn't have. And I just needed one more goal. I needed to kind of get to the next level so that I had some motivation. And so I chose to compete after talking to a few friends and kind of doing a little bit of research and finding a coach that could support me in this journey of mine. So that I had, one more thing to reach for, and I have been competing now it's 2017, so for just over 5 years, and I've learned a ton in what I do. But, when it comes to any type of competition, you kind of got to know what's involved here, whether it's, my first competitions weren't even in bodybuilding or physique. Actually, my very first thing that I chose to do was to run a couple of 10Ks. I hadn't run a race since high school, and honestly, even in high school, I wasn't very athletic, so, just needed something to kind of push me a little bit forward, and I really enjoyed that, but unfortunately my body and my hips and some issues that I haven't really allowed me to continue to run. So I needed just something that was a little bit next level. But if you think of any type of sport or competition, there's a lot involved. It's not just, you don't wake up one day and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be the next American Ninja Warrior. That's what I want to do today. There's some background experience and skills that you kind of have to have in order to participate and do well in that kind of a sport. So no matter what style or what competition that you're choosing to do, I really think you should do some research and really think about it, whether or not you're able to commit to the time, the energy, the money, the cost that's involved, just because it's more than just waking up and saying, I'm going to do that today. So we're going to talk a little bit about, I am going to talk about bodybuilding just because it is bodybuilding competition season, physique season. We just coached some girls through a competition last weekend, and we have the Emerald Cup coming up, which is a big show in the Pacific Northwest. It's one of the biggest ones, and the Craig Productions, they do such an amazing job. So let's talk a little bit about what's involved and why, it may or may not be for you. So the first thing I want to bring up is that just because you can doesn't mean you should. One of the reasons early on I chose not to coach competitors was I struggled a little bit with, honestly, let's just put it out there. If you're going to compete, competing is next level. It's what takes you to the next level. If you, as I put it, don't have your stuff together, you probably shouldn't be competing. Reasons to not, that you shouldn't be competing. Competing is not going to take you from a really unhealthy body to a fit body. If you don't have the basics down, you shouldn't even look at getting on stage. That's not what it's for. There's a lot behind competing. It's very mentally and emotionally challenging. It takes a lot of time. They say that it's a very selfish sport, and it absolutely is, because you are by yourself for a lot. There's a lot of prep work that goes into it, and if you're not okay with, if you already struggle with food issues, you definitely should not be in any sort of a physique competition, because it will just accentuate the problems that you already have. As women, I know a lot of times we have a very unhealthy relationship with food. it's taken me a long time to come to grips with an addiction to just carbohydrates and sugars, and being able to not say that I have that problem anymore. It's been about 7 years. And if you've heard kind of the science behind it, your body actually regenerates new cells, a complete set of new cells about every 7 years. So it's taken me a good 7 years to not physically crave certain things like sugars and candies and, having a sweet tooth. So if you know you have issues with that, might not be the best option for you. So let's just talk about a few things. Let's talk about time. If you are in the middle of school and it takes a lot of your time, or if you're studying for, a major test, if you've got a lot of things going on in your life, getting married even, those are things that can really compete with the amount of time required in order to participate in some sort of a competition, because not just the time itself, but the mental and emotional toll that it can take on you. I mean, it's huge. Ask anybody in my family what kind of a meltdown that I have on a regular basis when I'm getting prepared for a show. There's a lot that's there, but we're talking about time, not just the show that itself, but you will find yourself in the gym. You have to prepare your food. There's a lot of things that go on time-wise besides that. So time is going to be super important. And for those of you that think that you're going to compete and make it big and make a living out of this, I have news for you. It is not going to happen. I always call it my very expensive hobby. It is the reason that I started to work full time, and because I don't want to take those funds away from my family. So it is expensive. And just a quick word about sponsorships. While sponsorships are great for multiple reasons, they are not easy. They are not freebies. They do take time. It's like having an extra job because it needs to benefit the company that's sponsoring you in some way. So whether that's by doing posts on social media, whether that's sitting at a booth for several hours, like I get to this weekend at the Emerald Cup for one of my sponsors, it's not all pretty and easy and, hey, I'm going to get some free stuff. It doesn't work that way. It has to be a win-win situation. So keep that in mind. I had a friend once tell me in the beginning of my competing, when I was like, oh, I can't find sponsors. He says, you know what? You have to put your time in. It's going to take some time. You have to prove that you're actually an athlete that's worth sponsoring. And so it took me several years actually to find my first sponsor, and I appreciate Max Muscle. They've done some great things for me. So keep that in mind. Energy level. If you work a physically demanding job and you choose to compete, your life is going to suck because it's hard. My life is cardio. So, doing 2 cardios a day, being in a calorie deficit for long periods of time, you have to take those things in consideration because it could affect your job even. It's hard. Also, think about the time and the emotional energy that it's going to take, and the toll it's going to take on your family and your friends. It is a very lonely sport. There's certain things you don't go out and party when you're in competition prep. There's certain things you cannot do, or that you probably shouldn't put yourself in a position of. And so, I have friends that stopped talking to me or inviting me to do things because, Melissa can't drink, she can't eat pizza, she can't do all these other things. She's no fun anymore, so we're not going to invite her. It happens. You have to make that decision based on what's going to make you happy and what your goals are and where you want to go with that. So the first tip that I'm going to give you when it comes to whether or not you should compete is you've got to know why. You've got to know why you want to be there. And this is for any sort of competition. Is it going to take you to the next level? Is it something that's going to, I don't know, is it going to give you confidence? There's certain reasons why you shouldn't. Like I said, you're not going to become instantly famous and be the next Dana Lynn Bailey. It just doesn't happen that way. Those women have worked long and hard to get where they are and built their brand. So, again, you're not going to make money at it. You're just going to spend a lot. So, know the reason why you want to get on stage, because there are going to be days that you're going to be ready to quit. And those reasons need to be big enough that they keep you going on the days that you just don't feel like it. Okay, so we talked about a couple things. For some of you, it might not be the right reason because you just might not have the right DNA. And I hate to say that because my body is completely different than it was 5 years ago. I have built what I had, but it did take time. But it's not for everybody. You know, you can do the best you can do. I'm going to tell you that not everybody should get on stage every season. And this is just my opinion. You can hate me if you want. I really don't care. But I always see a few people that, gosh, I think, wow, what coach let you on stage? You are just not ready to be on stage. And I think there's a fine line there. And I'm not saying that the accomplishments weren't huge and wonderful and amazing. But just because at that moment you're in the very best shape of your life does not mean that you are stage ready. So keep that in mind as well, that you know, you probably should be willing at some point to have your coach look at you and decide whether or not that it's the right timing for you. You may not lean out as fast as you originally anticipate, or you just don't have enough muscle. I had a wonderful, wonderful woman come to me a couple of years ago and talk to me about doing a bikini competition. And after asking some questions and kind of assessing the situation, I told her, yeah, it's going to take about 18 months. And she said, what are you talking about? I said, you have no muscle. She said, well, I'm doing a bikini competition. What muscle do I need? First of all, you should probably attend one so that you know what you're looking at and what your goals are. But the bikini girls have muscle. So if you are starting in a position where you haven't been lifting, yeah, you shouldn't even attempt. There's a certain stage and a certain progression that you need to have in order to be able to get on stage, even in a bikini. So, you know, super important that you know that you are what they're looking for, that you're going that direction. Also, so let me just say something for the cost of competitions. It depends on several things, but it's not just the competition itself. Yeah, you're going to spend $100 to $150 to get on stage if it's a local show, but you're talking about a tan, a coach, the food, a hotel, the travel, the suit. Guys, my suits cost upwards of $800. So, it's not like running to the store and just buying a bikini. That doesn't work. It's not the same thing. There's a lot there. So above and beyond sponsorships, you know, sometimes I see things like, you know, people set up GoFundMe accounts. Guys, if you can't afford to pay your own bills, you should not be getting on stage. That is not other people's job to support your dream or your desire to get on stage. That is something that you need to budget for and prepare for, so that you can be there and that you can do it well. For those that choose to, hey, I just want to get on stage, I don't really need a coach. Yeah, let me just tell you different. Even the coach needs a coach. When I get on stage, I have a coach. I need somebody who is not emotionally attached to me to look and say, no, Melissa, you're going to have to do double cardios now. So it's important that if you're going to do it, you should do it right and you should do it well. Kind of back to, just because you can get on stage doesn't mean that you shouldn't. They don't have any rules of anything that would prevent you from getting up there when it comes to being ready. Those promoters need to make money, and so they're going to allow you to register and pay your money, and they're going to allow you on stage. And of course, there is a certain point where you should look like you belong on stage. That's the minimum. That, for me, that would be the minimum requirement, is you should look like you belong there. And not everybody does. You know, I want you to be able to get through the situation with dignity, and be excited. I find it fascinating how many little bikini girls, no offense, post on social media. Look at me, look at my posing, look at how I do, look at my suit. Guess what? I'm going to do a show. And after the show, you never hear about it again. And it's because, honestly, it was hype. You know, they're so excited. They want to participate in some sort of a, you know, hey, I'm a bikini girl, I'm a competitor. And then they get on stage and realize that they probably really weren't ready. Maybe they didn't do very well. And of course, then you never hear from them again. I'm not a fan of posting my pre-competition pictures. You know what? I want to show up and show you what I got. And I don't want you to know what I got before I get there. So, you know, yeah, I find it fascinating, those that choose to get on stage who probably shouldn't be there. So my few tips would be, you know what to expect. work with someone who's been there before, with a coach that can help guide you there, because that is important. I also don't want you to ruin your metabolism while you're at it. So that's important. And it's not just the diet. It's not just getting on stage. There's posing. It's choosing the right suit. It's choosing the right shape. There's so much more to it than just, oh, I'm going to put on a bikini and get on stage. My other tips, if you are choosing to do this, first of all, you're going to love it or you hate it. You're going to love it or you're going to hate it. There's no in between. You either love every minute of it or you hate the whole thing. You're never going to do it again, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But just be prepared for that. And it is a lonely sport. I stopped looking at social media several weeks before I compete because I start to compare myself and the little negative things start to come out in my head, and it's an unhealthy option. So I do choose to kind of stay away from looking to see what's out there. I don't look up my competition. It just doesn't do well for me or my head. So, and I'm always nervous. No matter how many times I've competed, I still get nervous before I get on stage. And of course, I am my worst critic. I always tell myself apart because I'm a perfectionist. So I always want to put my best up there, and I have to be very careful about how I treat myself when I'm getting ready for that. So if you guys have any questions, I've kind of just pulled some things that I've thought about over the last little while. Couple other things just off the top of my head. Number one, be prepared to have a very rigid lifestyle. Be prepared to give up things that normally you might allow yourself. You're not going to have sugar. You're just not going to have sugar. It's going to be cut from your diet. And that includes alcohol. Do not think that you can prepare for stage and drink on a regular basis or at all until you're done. It doesn't fly. So be prepared to live a lifestyle that is very, very rigid, very, very difficult. You have to be prepared everywhere you go. You have to take your 6-pack cooler everywhere you go. You have to because you have to eat. If you don't eat, you lose the muscle. So, it's not an easy lifestyle. For those of you that don't know, this is my last season. We're going to give it one more go this summer at some national shows and see how we do. But right now, I can't be coach and I can't be competitor at the same time. So we're going to take a break and just see how things go. I love competing. I love everything about it. So I'll continue to coach, but I love my job and I love working with the people that I work with. So that is my passion, and that's what I'm going to be working on for the next few years. And for those of you, yes, thank you, Marco, for showing everybody my car today on Facebook. He pulled into the parking lot and saw my car and snapped a picture. So it's kind of fun to see my sexy beast of a car drive through town. From somebody else's perspective. But if you have any questions, I absolutely love answering them. Of course, everything that you hear is from my perspective, from my experience of doing what I do and doing what I love. But you can also send me other questions by leaving a message down below, or you can also email me at melissa@fillmorefitness.com, because that's where I get my best questions and be able to respond to the people that listen to me every week. And I do appreciate you all. So have an incredible evening. The sun's out. I'm gonna go out there and enjoy that a little bit. I really enjoy the weather that's coming out. It's almost summer. So have an incredible night and happy Wednesday.